Okay, so this is our first experiment where we're going to mix hot and cold water together. Before you start, you're going to want to take a lid and poke a hole in it. Mine's probably a bit big, so that you can get one of the thermocouples into that. And you're going to want to have this off. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to take a certain amount of hot water as indicated in the lab and a certain amount of cold water as indicated in the lab and mix them together in the cup. And then we're going to measure the temperature of that mixture and wait for it to come to equilibrium, which we'll see when the temperature kind of approaches a constant value in time. You're going to want to heat the water, and you're going to want to do this fairly quickly after you have the hot water. And again, I just want to caution you, make sure that you're very careful. We have included a little measuring cup in the thing that's a metric on it, so it goes to 30 milliliters. However, many homes will have measuring cups that do have metric on them. You're free to use one of those. They would have a little more volume and make it a little bit easier to do this. But this will work just fine for the purposes of our experiment. The last thing that we want to have ready before we even get started, before you pull the hot water off, is to stack 3 of your cups together, because what we're going to want to do is make sure we build what's called a calorimeter. Basically, it's something that's to try and keep the heat trapped in the system. So once you get done mixing the water together and giving it a little bit of a stir, you're going to put it into here, and you're going to set this in here. You're going to stick the temperature probe in, and then it'd be good if you can just set these off to the side to help, again, keep a little bit heat off, and then we're going to watch the temperature as a function of time. We don't need the washers for this part of the lab. Okay, so for the first part of the lab, you're going to pick the specified volume of water. I'm going to start with the hot water here, and before I do this, I actually want to measure the temperatures of these liquids, the waters, and make sure that I record those values right before I mix them together. So to do that, I'm going to have to connect my temperature probe, and this connects in many ways the same way as the others. So again, as I have been doing, I'm in trials, but you're actually going to do this in the lab. So I'm going to connect the pocket lab. This button right here that's in the gap, you turn it on, and you can see a PL thermal will connect, and I can hit pair, and we're good to go. And so on here, you can see the red line and the blue line. This is just the temperature of the one of the 2 different probes. So before I mix the waters together, I'm going to want to know what the temperature is. So I'm going to put the red into the hot and the blue into the cold, and I'm going to wait until they kind of equilibrate and reach constant value. Of course, I know the cold water should be roughly 0, and the hot water should be roughly 100, although I took this off the burner a little while ago, so it's probably going to be a little cooler than that. Again, you're going to want to try and do this as quickly as you can. So if I just hit record, and I can kind of watch the probes go, and again, I can try to stir these to make sure that the water is kind of nice and uniform. And again, for the ice water, you can stick this in the ice water long before you start to make sure that it reaches whatever temperature it's going to reach. And again, note that the values that the probes are measuring are down here. So you can see my hot water is sitting at about 80 degrees Celsius, and my cold water is sitting at about 4-point-something degrees Celsius, slowly coming down. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and start the experiment. Again, try to pull the hot water off at the last minute before you do this experiment, so that it is as hot as possible. But whatever it is, record this value. So in this case, I would record 78 degrees Celsius for the hot and 4.6 degrees Celsius for the cold. Okay. Now I'm going to mix them together. And again, I'm just going to take the hot water, and I'm going to take the appropriate volume and put it into my measuring cup. And again, I'm going to ask you to measure more carefully than I am. I'm demonstrating this, so make sure that you're looking and measuring the volume. So For my purposes, I'm going to do 100, but you should be using the values given to you in the lab. So there's my hot water. My cold water, I don't have to worry about. There's a little, I don't want any ice in there. So if you get a little ice in there, make sure that you take it out. You want just water. So I'm going to add, there's 30 and another 50. Now I'm going to put the lid on, I'm going to give it just a quick stir to get the two of them together. I'm going to put my lid on and I'm going to stick it in my calorimeter and I'm going to stick the probe in and just cover it up to try and keep any losses out of it. And then I'm going to sit and watch the temperature as it changes. And again, remember, I stuck the hot probe in, which is the red one. And so what I'm going to be looking for is this to come to some kind of constant value to do, as we say, is to equilibrate. And so it should reach kind of a constant value. Once it's done that, you're going to want to record that value as the final temperature of the mixture of the water. Make sure that when you're done, I'm almost there, but I probably would let it go for another minute or so just to make sure I reach the nice asymptotic value. You hit stop and make sure that you save your graph as your data for the demonstration. And that is the experiment one. You're going to repeat this again with more cold water and less hot water, and you're going to do the calculations as asked.